The ones closest to you are sometimes the ones who can hurt you the most. But how do you protect yourself when the demons wear the faces of your loved ones? It's a devastating truth that many of us struggle to accept. Those who are supposed to be your safe haven, your family, your closest friends, might be the very ones slowly tearing at your peace. Their words, their actions, their subtle manipulations can leave deep emotional scars that no one can see. And often they are disguised behind a smile, a hug, or the comforting words we've been taught to trust. Is it possible to love someone and still protect your peace from them? This is a question the Stoics wrestled with. They didn't promise that we would escape pain or betrayal, but they did offer us a way to navigate it. According to Stoic thought, true peace comes from within, and it is something we must actively protect, not from external threats, but from the emotional turmoil that others can stir within us. The Stoics believed that peace is not just a state of mind, it's a way of living. In this video, we will uncover the Stoic insights that can protect you from the subtle and not so subtle emotional harm caused by friends and family. These principles aren't about building walls or turning your back on loved ones. Instead, Stoicism teaches us how to see the world and those closest to us through clear eyes. It helps us recognize harmful patterns, understand their root causes, and learn how to preserve our inner peace, no matter what chaos others may bring into our lives. Life is full of complexities, but when the people who should bring you comfort bring you chaos instead, it's time to face a painful truth. Stoicism teaches us to see the world as it truly is, not as we wish it to be. Recognizing harmful patterns, understanding their root, and learning how to safeguard our inner peace is vital for survival. At first glance, love appears to be an anchor in a stormy sea, a safe haven, a place of peace and emotional refuge. But sometimes love wears a mask. It can be twisted and distorted, wielded as a weapon rather than a source of comfort. In the most subtle ways, affection and support can become tools for manipulation, control, and emotional suffocation. The problem is, love's mask is so convincing, so alluring, that it's hard to see the danger until it's too late. What seems like care and concern can, over time, chip away at your mental and emotional well-being. The cruelty is hidden in the guise of compassion, the control, disguised as care. You find yourself questioning your own reality, your own feelings, and even your worth. We often hear that love is unconditional. We've been taught to expect it to be pure, unselfish, and affirming. But what if, instead, it's a tool for someone's ego, a means to establish dominance over your heart and mind? It doesn't start with loud demands or overt hostility. In fact, it's usually quieter than that, more insidious. Love, in this case, is used as a way to gain emotional control and manipulate your actions, beliefs, and choices. And when it's done well, you won't even see it coming. Gaslighting? Gaslighting is the psychological manipulation that makes you question your reality. It's when someone twists facts, distorts truth, or outright denies things they've said or done. At first, it may seem like an innocent mistake or a misunderstanding, but over time, you start doubting yourself. For instance, imagine you're in a relationship where your partner constantly tells you that your memory of events is wrong. You're overreacting, they might say, or, I never said that. Eventually, you begin to wonder, did I misinterpret things? Did I make it up? The more they deny reality, the more you lose your confidence. The love that once made you feel secure becomes the very thing that creates your instability. Guilt tripping. A loved one might use your feelings of affection to manipulate you into doing things that you wouldn't normally do. They make you feel guilty for wanting something different, for setting boundaries, or for pursuing your own goals. They may say things like, "After all I've done for you, this is how you repay me," or, "If you really loved me, you'd do this for me." The love they claim to give becomes an emotional debt, and you're expected to pay it at their convenience. The guilt starts to feel suffocating. Your desires, your needs, your peace, none of it matters when weighed against their expectations, and you feel responsible for their happiness, even at the cost of your own. Love is a tool for control. In some relationships, the person you love might control your every move, not by overt force, but through constant emotional manipulation. They will disguise their control as love, acting like they are protecting you, guiding you, or helping you make the right decisions. Perhaps they question your every choice, doubt your abilities, and subtly undermine your confidence. Maybe they try to dictate who you spend time with, where you go, or what you do with your time. It feels like love because it's cloaked in care and concern, but underneath it all is control, a slow, creeping influence that chips away at your autonomy. They might act as if they know you better than you know yourself, but the truth is, they only know how to keep you tethered to their whims and needs. You're made to feel incapable or unworthy of making decisions on your own. The boundaries you try to set are seen as rejection, not as self-care. And soon enough, you forget what it feels like to make a choice for yourself without feeling guilty or uncertain. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The only way to deal with this world is to face it with clarity, not delusion." Facing the truth about love is hard. It's uncomfortable to realize that someone you trust, someone you care for, could be manipulating your emotions for their own benefit. It's painful to admit that the love you thought was pure may have been laced with control from the very start. But clarity is power. The Stoics believed that true strength comes from seeing the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. Understanding that someone can disguise manipulations as love is a necessary step toward freedom. It's a form of self-preservation. The reality is, love can be beautiful, but it can also be toxic. When twisted, love should not diminish your sense of self. It should not strip you of your peace, your confidence, or your freedom. Recognizing love as a tool for control does not mean rejecting affection, but rather understanding the difference between healthy love and harmful manipulation. When you see love for what it truly is, both its light and its shadows, you gain the strength to protect your own mind and soul. The Stoics were not just masters of logic and reason. They were also masters of protecting their emotional landscapes. They knew that our thoughts and emotions are not to be outsourced to others, nor should they be controlled by others. When you recognize the subtle forms of manipulation disguised as love, you can begin to protect yourself. Love is not a weapon. It should be a refuge. It should build, not break. When you see manipulation for what it is, you gain clarity. And with that clarity, you reclaim your peace. The Stoic path isn't about shutting down your emotions or rejecting love. It's about knowing when love is genuine and when it's being used to control, guilt, or manipulate. It's about having the strength to walk away from relationships that undermine your well-being and about setting boundaries that protect your peace. One of the most insidious consequences of being surrounded by toxic people is the slow, almost imperceptible erosion of your emotional well-being. At first, the strain seems minor, even inconsequential. A slight discomfort here, a moment of frustration there. But over time, the toll compounds. What started as an occasional emotional disturbance begins to feel like a heavy burden, weighing you down, mentally and emotionally. Toxic individuals don't always shout their demands from the rooftops. Instead, they engage in a quiet, draining cycle that wears you thin, gradually chipping away at your peace. And often, you don't even notice how exhausted you are until the emotional drain has already begun to take its toll. But this is precisely why it's essential to recognize the signs early, before burnout becomes inevitable. Emotional burnout is not an immediate explosion. It's a steady, subtle deterioration. When toxic people are constantly in your life, their presence can become a silent, insidious force that slowly wears down your emotional reserves. At first, it may seem like you're just dealing with normal stressors, challenges with work, family, or relationships. But when toxic people are involved, it often feels like every interaction requires more energy than it should. They demand your attention and emotional labor, leaving you drained even after a short conversation. Over time, these small emotional withdrawals add up, and your peace starts to feel like it's on the verge of collapse. What began as a momentary irritation now becomes a constant state of heightened anxiety, confusion, and emotional exhaustion. The sense of peace you once had, where you felt centered and calm, begins to feel like a distant memory. Another key aspect of the emotional toll is how toxic people often expect you to carry their emotional burdens. Whether it's a friend, a family member, or a partner, these individuals seem to always have a problem they need to unload onto you. Their struggles, their frustrations, their pain. Suddenly, it's all yours to bear. This emotional caretaking can be especially draining because it creates an unspoken expectation. You're not allowed to have your own needs. You're not allowed to set boundaries. Your emotional space is constantly encroached upon. And the more you try to help, the more they demand. Over time, this becomes an overwhelming burden. Instead of being someone's equal partner or friend, you find yourself playing the role of their emotional caretaker, always giving without receiving. It's easy to get caught in this cycle, especially when you care about the person. You want to help, you want to support, and you want to be there for them. But when this becomes a recurring pattern, it's crucial to recognize that you are giving so much of yourself that you begin to lose touch with your own emotional well-being. You're exhausted from listening to the same complaints over and over, offering advice that's never heeded, and constantly adjusting your life to accommodate their emotional turmoil. Your emotional resources are finite, and when you're constantly expending them without replenishment, you will eventually run dry. The toxic person may not notice, but you will feel the difference. The heaviness that comes from being perpetually needed, but never truly supported. In addition to emotional burnout and the psychological drain of others' problems, there's also the mental fatigue that comes from being surrounded by manipulative or toxic people. This is the toll of constant second-guessing, the exhausting need to always wonder if you're being manipulated or if your decisions are truly your own. With toxic individuals, nothing ever feels straightforward. You can't just say no without guilt or consequences. You can't set a boundary without being guilt-tripped or made to feel bad. You find yourself constantly trying to meet their expectations, even when they're unreasonable. There's a mental weariness that comes from constantly evaluating how your words and actions will be perceived, calculating how to avoid triggering an emotional reaction, or simply trying to avoid conflict altogether. This second-guessing can be incredibly draining. Your mind is constantly running through scenarios, trying to anticipate how the other person will react, trying to predict their next move, or wondering if you're being manipulated. It becomes a mental game where you feel as though you're constantly walking on eggshells, trying not to set off an emotional bomb. The more you engage in this mental gymnastics, the more it chips away at your peace of mind. Your mind is no longer clear and focused on your own life. It's bogged down by the incessant need to keep track of someone else's emotional state. it becomes harder to trust yourself, and the weight of others' emotions clouds your ability to think and act with clarity. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, wisely taught, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." This quote is key when it comes to dealing with emotional burnout, psychological drain, and mental fatigue. The Stoic approach teaches us that while we cannot control the actions or emotions of others, we can choose how to respond to them. And the most powerful response is often detachment. When you recognize that someone's emotional turmoil is not your burden to carry, you can begin to detach your emotional state from theirs. This doesn't mean you stop caring or become cold-hearted. It means that you learn how to protect your inner peace and recognize when it's time to draw the line. By practicing detachment, you stop absorbing their negativity. You refuse to let their chaos dictate your emotional state. When you set boundaries, when you calmly and confidently step back from the emotional demands placed on you, you regain control of your peace. You allow yourself to reclaim the energy you've been giving away, restoring your emotional reserves and mental clarity. Recognizing the emotional toll that toxic people take on your life is the first step toward freeing yourself from their grasp. You don't have to bear their burdens, carry their emotional weight, or constantly second-guess your decisions to meet their expectations. Through Stoic wisdom, you can learn to choose your response. You can detach yourself from their emotional turmoil and begin to prioritize your own peace of mind. By doing so, you protect your emotional reserves and preserve the mental clarity you need to live authentically. Remember, your peace is yours to protect. You can't change the behavior of others, but you can control how much you allow it to affect you. Reclaim your energy, reclaim your peace, and remember that you are the master of your emotional world. The foundation of protecting your peace lies in setting boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are the compassionate limits you place to preserve your well-being without disrespecting others. Setting healthy boundaries can feel challenging, especially with loved ones, but it is vital for your emotional health. Often we fear conflict or feel guilty for putting ourselves first, but boundaries are necessary for balanced, healthy relationships. Learning to say no is a powerful tool, but doing so with kindness ensures that relationships remain intact while also maintaining your self-respect. It's important to communicate your needs clearly and calmly, without apologizing or explaining yourself excessively. For example, how if a friend or family member asks something of you that you cannot accommodate, simply stating, "I can't do that right now, but I appreciate you asking," sets a firm but respectful boundary. Stoic wisdom supports this practice. Marcus Aurelius said, "We have power over our actions, but not over others' reactions." Recognizing when to step back is not weakness, but an act of self-preservation. Setting boundaries allows you to control your environment and protect your peace, even in challenging circumstances. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, a relationship cannot improve. Stoicism teaches us that not every situation is within our control, and not every person will change. The most loving thing you can do is to walk away, not with hatred or resentment, but with clarity and acceptance. This is emotional detachment, the ability to love from a distance, recognizing that the relationship is no longer serving your highest good. The power of acceptance lies in letting go of the need for everyone to change or conform to our expectations. When we accept that some relationships cannot evolve, we free ourselves from emotional chains, allowing space for healthier, more supportive connections. In the end, protecting your peace isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about recognizing what nourishes you and honoring it with love, even from a distance. You wake up one morning, feeling the weight of exhaustion like never before. The fatigue isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, and spiritual. You've been giving your time, energy, and love to others, always offering more of yourself, more of your patience, more of your care. Yet the same toxic cycles continue, with nothing changing. The people around you who claim to love you seem to be silently suffocating you. And despite your best efforts, you're left feeling empty. You glance at yourself in the mirror and notice something different in your eyes. A tiredness, yes, but also a realization. This is the moment you've been avoiding, the one where you finally understand that your emotional well-being is non-negotiable. You can no longer afford to sacrifice yourself for the comfort or approval of others. The silent weight of emotional manipulation, guilt, and unspoken expectations has built up over time, and now it's become impossible to ignore. You're at your breaking point, and you know something has to change. For so long, you've accepted the toxicity, convincing yourself that love means sacrifice, that your worth is measured by how much you give. But today, something shifts within you. It's not anger or resentment that rises up. It's clarity. You realize, perhaps for the first time, that your peace is priceless. The damage has already been done, but what matters now is your ability to break free from the toxic hold. In that moment, you understand that you don't need to tolerate dysfunction or manipulation anymore. You don't need to stay in relationships that drain you, no matter how long you've been in them or how much you've given. You've reached the point where protecting your peace becomes more important than holding on to something that never truly nurtured you. You make a vow to yourself that you will no longer accept the emotional toll onto of others' unresolved issues as your burden to carry. Your worth is not defined by the endless demands placed on you. You have the right to exist in relationships that honor your boundaries, respect your time, and most importantly, nurture your spirit. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, teaches, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." It's not the actions of others that hurt you most. It's the fear, guilt, and assumptions you carry in your mind. It's the emotional weight you place on situations and relationships that don't deserve it. What you've been carrying, the silent suffering, the unspoken expectations, the guilt, is a mental construct fed by your own assumptions of what you owe others. The moment of awakening is when you realize that your response to others' actions is where your true power lies. No one can control your peace unless you allow them to. Understanding this is the first step to freedom. You don't need to control how others behave or force them to change. What you can control is how you choose to respond, whether you choose to let them affect you or whether you walk away with your peace intact. In this shift, you find strength, not in defending your actions to others, but in understanding that you no longer need to justify your peace to anyone. It's yours, and it's non-negotiable. In the end, love is not about sacrificing your peace for others' comfort. It's about learning to love yourself enough to protect your energy and emotional health, no matter who the person is. Stoicism teaches that protecting your peace is not an act of selfishness, but of wisdom. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus. Protecting your peace is the most stoic thing you can do for yourself, and by extension for others. When you are at peace, you can love in a way that is both genuine and healthy. Have you ever had to step back from a toxic relationship in your life? What helped you protect your peace? Share your thoughts or experience in the comments below, and let's continue this conversation together. This video addresses a deeply personal and painful issue, which encourages viewers to share their experiences, comment, and engage with the content, offering mutual healing and growth.